Okay, everyone, we're about to start our final session of the day before we go to the beach, so we are almost complete for the day. Our final session today will be how women will modernize Zoroastrianism, the world's oldest religion. And moderating this panel is Benafsha Shroff, aka B Money Denver.
Ladies, come on up. Wow. Got a great group of women here today. Yeah, why is the clapping stopped? I don't know. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the last session of the day. A little late, but we are going to get right into it. This panel is so that we can have a candid discussion and a real life experience chat. Just have a bunch of wonderful stories up here. These ladies are remarkable. You don't need more than 20 minutes with either of them to find that out. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we will get started. So let's start down.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anahita, and I was born and raised in Iran, and now I live in California.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tinaz Karbhari, and I'm here representing Hong Kong and New Zealand.
Hi everyone, I'm Rashna Sanjana and I was born and raised in Bombay, India.
Hi everyone, I'm Alisha Shroff and I'm from Hong Kong.
I'm Benafsha Shroff from Denver, Colorado. Go Broncos. Woo!
Hello everyone, I'm Sanaya Sabavala and I'm representing Victoria, Australia.
Hello everyone, I'm Shazneen Munshi and I'm from London in the UK.
Hi, I'm Rashna Virji and I'm from Karachi, Pakistan.
Hi everyone, my name is Negin Forouzesh. I was born and raised in Iran and now I'm a PhD student at Virginia Tech, US.
So, Negin, let's start with you today. And your story is so interesting from Iran coming to America. Talk to us about your experience with the religion in India, in Iran, and then coming to America and practicing.
Sure. So it was a very interesting transition for me from Iran to the US. And I'm sure there are many Iranian immigrants in the US, specifically in California, who can share the same feeling and experience with me. So back to Iran, I was an active member of Zoroastrian Student Association, or Kanun, for almost 8 years. We have several cultural, religious, sport, historic events organized by Kanun, and there are several other associations in Iran for Zoroastrians. So basically, if you are a Zoroastrian person in Iran, you often live in one of those major cities, and there are many associations there. You can easily connect with those. You can participate in the events and, be connected with the community. So that is a positive thing about Iran. And, as I mentioned, there are several associations. I want to also mention Zoroastrian Women Association, or Sazman Zanan, because in this panel we will be talking about the role of women in our religion, and they definitely have a very important role in our community because they have many workshops, they have many classes, they try to learn about our religion and then pass it down to the next generation. I didn't expect that. Yeah, so these are the positive things about Iran. But the challenge for us in Iran is that because that's an Islamic country, There are some certain rules, and you cannot definitely go beyond some boundaries, right? We are free to practice our religion in our community, but when you want to communicate with other people, you need to be careful about some certain things. As you know, our religion, Zoroastrianism, is a part of Persian culture. It's entangled with our history, with our culture, and many Iranians are actually very interested to know better about our religion. We can definitely talk about this. We can refer them to some textbooks. We can, try to improve their knowledge. But we cannot really go beyond that. We cannot try to invite or advertise things, and we have to respect these rules. Okay, so for us, the challenge in Iran was to understand these boundaries and try to, respect that. And when I came to the US 4 years ago to pursue my PhD at Virginia Tech with my husband, who is also a PhD student, things totally got changed. So here we have this freedom of speech, and that's the reason we're all here together. We are freely talking about our religion. So that's not the thing here. And in fact, back to our university, Virginia Tech, in our small college town, there are many Iranians, there are many people who are interested in our religion, and we can freely talk about that. We have an association at Virginia Tech. It's called ISVT, or Iranian Student at Virginia Tech. Arman and I were in the executive board of that association, and we celebrated Mehregan, Yalda, and Nowruz in our university, and we try to reach out to people and talk about our religion, and people are very welcoming. But the challenge for us here in the US is that for those people who do not live in major cities, like us, it's not that easy to reach out to associations, to Zoroastrian Association. Here is a big country, right? So if you live in Blacksburg, which is in Virginia, it takes you like 4 hours to drive to the closest association, which is Zamwi in our case. And here I want to thank you, Mrs. Ann Khademian, who is the chair of that association, and she's very supportive and very nice. Yeah, they do our best to support us, but what I'm saying here is that if you come here to the US as a student or whatever, it needs some effort to find your association. And I was wondering how we can facilitate this. I mean, Fezana supports whole the Northern America, so we can talk about this after this panel, and I'm really willing to do that. But yeah, this is the challenge for us here to participate in these activities. And with that said, I want to pass this mic to other people. I know that they have very lovely stories, and this is what I wanted to mention.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
So if you would pass it to Rashna right next to you from Pakistan again, and if you could speak to the women that are in positions in Pakistan really affecting change, I think that would be great.
Okay, all right. Hi again, everyone. So I come from a community in Pakistan where I belong to Karachi, and Karachi is one of the hubs of Parsis if we talk about the subcontinent in general. And in Pakistan, the one city where you will find the most Parsis is going to be Karachi. So my story basically begins where, as a young girl, I initially went to a school, fortunately, which was a Zoroastrian school. So it's known as the Mama Parsi Girls Secondary School. Now, this school has been built many, many years ago. We just celebrated our 100-year anniversary. So you can actually think... So you can understand how far we go back. And a Zoroastrian school just for girls is a very big achievement. In a country, in a land where the majority was not Zoroastrians in the first place. So basically what I'm trying to say is the Zoroastrians in Karachi, not just the women, but Zoroastrians in general, have influenced Pakistan and have influenced Karachi as a whole in a very major way. To put things into perspective, at one point in time, 3/4 of Karachi were actually owned by Zoroastrians. And this is something which has changed drastically. But our impact, despite the smaller numbers that we are still in, we are still making a huge difference. So coming back, I'm sorry I digressed a little bit, but I wanted to give you all a little bit of background. So looking at Karachi and the impact that we have, I want to talk about one of the organizations currently functional in Karachi, which is known as the Karachi Zartoshti Banu Mandal. So for those, can anyone tell me over here in the audience what the word Banu means? The word Banu means lady. So the thing is that the institution in itself, and I call it an institution, not an organization, it is because in 1911, this is far back, like this is over 100 years ago, and it's actually 1912. An institution was built by women for women, all right? And this goes back to the time where Pakistan didn't even exist. So what basically ended up happening was it was a group of women who were backed by the men also during that time. So I don't want to take it away from the men at the same time.
Yeah, we know we have feminists in here. Where are the men feminists? Yeah.
So basically, at that time, dating back then, what happened was that there was a group of women who actually thought that we needed an institution which looked towards empowering other women. And this is something which is very unique to Zoroastrianism, because these kinds of concepts have come much later in other cultures, in other regions and locations that have emerged. However, this was something that our community has already been involved in far back. So basically, the Karachi Zartoshti Banu Mandal was an institution made by women for women to encourage women to become self-substantial and to be able to achieve their goals, to not have to depend on other people for support. So basically, you were trying to not feed a person by giving them fish. You were actually trying to make them the fishermen of their life. All right, so what ended up happening was that this group of ladies came together with the help of the community and then started this institution. Now, currently what this institution does and how it has evolved over the years is that this is a committee of, let's say, around 14 people with a recent inclusion of a youth member now. So that makes it a total of 15 members. And these 15 members who form the board are just women. And these women basically work with each other, trying to look at the aspects where we can actually help our community. Initially, the community in Karachi was much larger, few thousands. Now we've dwindled down to like a few hundreds. We're probably 900 or 1,000. But we're still looking towards making sure that we help our community. Now, the Karachi Zartoshti Banu Mandal has a few things that we look into, like the subcommittees that are there. So the organization basically looks at rehabilitating people supporting them. They wanted to initially create neighborly values, which have now become that now because the community is so small, we're looking at other aspects. So there is rehabilitation, there is general welfare of the people of the community, then there is child chapter. The Zoroastrian people from Karachi might be able to remember all the trips that we've made through child chapter. Give me a big round of applause if you remember this. Yeah, these were fantastic times. And apart from that, we look into education, we look into medical aspects of things, and that is why it's a whole, it's a very harmonious sort of a thing. Now, I'm part of that committee now, and if I might add my personal experience, my first meeting was very, very shocking. I cannot tell you, I cannot explain how boisterous it was. There were women talking here, there, everywhere. Everybody was so passionate, trying to get the word out. And everybody was so passionate that I literally felt like it's a fish market. But then, at the end of the day, when I sat through 2 or 3 of those meetings, I realized that all of these women are literally dealing with these issues like they are in their home. And these were people who they were talking about, who they just knew. And that is what really connected with me later on. And that is something that I found really, really precious, where all of these women are looking at all of these issues that affect the various people of their community with so much passion as if it was happening in their own household. And that is what basically makes us understand, and that is what made me understand, that we need to look beyond our homes and we need to work towards making that difference, which is one of the reasons why I went to the Return to Roots program. And after that, this is my first Congress here. So all of these things incorporated, I think it was a very fulfilling experience, and I wish I could share more, and hopefully I will get a chance, but I'll pass the mic on. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashna. So I'm sure a few of you know our Suslu, Shaz. She is very much involved in the community. And I would like if you could share with some of the girls who, maybe this is their first Congress, the gentlemen too, what motivates you to be a part of your community in the UK, and what has been your experience growing up there?
Okay, so I'm from London, and London baby, and having sort of lived in small sort of English towns for most of my life, it was interesting growing up in the UK. So my parents were first-generation migrants from India and Kenya, and they settled in London in the late 1970s. So for one thing, we were the only Asian family in my streets, in my neighborhood, and at school I was only one of a handful of Asian children. Secondly, a lot of people had never heard of Zoroastrians, so at school people would say, "What did you say? Are you a Rastafarian?" Which was entertaining to say the least. Thirdly, we also lived very far from our Zoroastrian centre in London, so interaction with other Zoroastrian children was very limited, or practically non-existent growing up. And when you were at school, seeing the looks of interest on your classmates' faces as you got changed for sports wearing your Southern custody would be amusing. So there were a lot of challenges growing up in the UK. However, I've always felt a strong sense of pride about being a Zoroastrian and explaining this to other people. So having grown up in a traditional Zoroastrian Parsi family, I understood the core values and experienced our religious customs and traditions from a young age. Whenever I did visit our Zoroastrian centre on the rare occasion, it was indeed a very special experience to feel part of a majority rather than a minority. Seeing our community, our ancient religious traditions and joyful celebrations, experiencing the warm glow of fire and the aromatic scent of sandalwood, and seeing our colourful sort of animated Parsi characters did fill me with a strong sense of pride, joy and belonging. So I'd always wanted to get involved in the Zoroastrian community, but the fact of the matter was that we lived so far from our Zoroastrian centre. So whenever we did go to Zoroastrian centre on the odd occasion for Navroz celebrations, I'd always find it quite difficult. Naturally, a lot of the people there had formed sort of cliques and groups from their childhood, which is natural and understandable. This meant that sort of in my late teens and early 20s, whenever sort of I did go to any sort of young Zoroastrian events, I really didn't know anyone, and it did feel quite sort of isolating. So at the time then I just decided I need to do something about this. I have lots of Indian friends, Christian friends, but I had this strong desire to have Zoroastrian friends. So I joined the Young Zoroastrian Committee in the UK. I volunteered there for 6 months, then became chair. Did that for 5 years. So I organised a wide range of events for our youth, trips in the UK, and the rest is history. I feel like I know everyone now. After that, then I joined the management committee of our organisation in London called the Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe. And I've also been organising the religious education classes for children, known as our fun club classes, of teaching children about Zoroastrianism in a fun and interactive way and sort of how to apply it to their everyday life. So that's sort of a bit of background about my experience.
Thank you, Shaz. Let's start with Alisha on this side. We're not skipping her, we're coming back, don't worry. Alisha, you are 4th generation in Hong Kong. Talk to us about what that means to be there as a minority and what it means there to be there today and how that community is shaping.
Okay, so being 4th generation in Hong Kong, I feel very lucky because I don't know if you guys know, but Zoroastrians and the Far East had a very special relationship from a long time ago. There was an article in the South China Morning Post stating that Zoroastrian merchants and traders actually came to the Far East as dating back to the 12th century, and Chinese emperors at the time used to encourage trade, between, and we actually have fire temples still dotted along the Silk Road in some areas of China. So the community, yes, it's a minority, it's small, but it's a very mighty little community. I would say that in Hong Kong, we've really, like we always do, the Zoroastrians, the Parsis, wherever we go, we really embed ourselves in the community, and we do it in such a nice way, and it's not like we're taking over anything, but we really add value to a community. So just in Hong Kong alone, we have 2 roads, Kotwal Road, Modi Road, the Star Ferry, which is one of the main forms of transport in Hong Kong, from Hong Kong Island to Kowloon Island, was started by a Parsi. Yeah. We grew up very proud to be Zoroastrian, born into the Zoroastrian faith. Personally, the community is about 200 people of all ages. Young community is limited, small. So in my generation, there were not that many people. I was really related to everyone. So, like you are somewhere along the line, you're related to someone. But, I feel like the first time I really felt really connected to the community was when I used to come to congresses like this. So I went to the congress, not just a youth congress, but also the world congresses in Dubai and in Perth and things like that. And that's where you really learn and you educate yourself. And I think that that's a really important forum. For us now, because we're such a small community, I think we really need to look at the youth. And we need to look at, because it's starting to get to a point where we really need to understand what we ourselves, you, me, us, everyone, are going to contribute in a few years' time, and how we want to move the religion forward. So it's great that we have insight and we have advice from all our great elder generation, but I think, we're the ones who are going to really impact moving forward. So I always try to encourage, my sister's 12 years younger than me, and I try to encourage her as a young woman growing up in China, to network, and you're going to come to things like this and really step outside your comfort zone and meet people and really try and think what you get out of something like this. It's really easy to stay inside your circles and comfort groups. I do that too, but I think that we've got so many amazing people in the room, and every time I listen to people talk, I'm just wowed. So that's what I try and encourage, the younger generation in Hong Kong. We do things like our Dustaji for the younger generation, does classes about trying to teach the younger generation more about our religion. We also have like regular youth outings that we go and we just do something fun and hang out somewhere, or, you know, and I think that that's really important to keep encouraging that. But I love seeing the Return to Roots program. I love seeing all the great stuff that people are doing around the world, especially with women, you know, and I think we need to keep really leveraging on these big things and keep making sure that we keep that going, you know. Thank you.
So much. Rashna. So, Rashna, you're from India, and one of the things I think we often hear about with India is how many influential Zoroastrians have made contributions and impact, not only to India, but in the world. And as a youth who's involved in WZCC and a co-founder of your own company, can you talk to us a little bit about women stepping into that role of being influential Zoroastrians from India?
Sure, thanks, Benafsha. So basically to give, I don't know, has everyone over here visited India? How many people have? Okay, so 80%, all right. But just, there are a few people maybe who haven't been to Bombay, just to give you a little bit of the idea of the scenario of Zoroastrians. And as everyone has kind of really said, there is a theme running across cities in the world, which is basically that Zoroastrians have been a big part of the history of the founding of big cities in terms of the industrial contributions that they've made. And as a society or as a community, they are really revered to and looked up to. So even in Bombay, Bombay is possibly the only city that you'll go to where everybody really knows who a Parsi is. They think, oh my God, these crazy Parsis, you know, let them do whatever they want to, but they're the best, kind-hearted people, and they've really contributed to this city, so they really respect us. That being said, a couple of things that I kind of want to bring up in this discussion, and one of these things is the fact that, yes, there are so many people like the Tatas, the Wadias, the Godrejes who have contributed in such a large way to the community as a whole, to the world, and to Bombay. But what I do feel personally, in my opinion, and I do see this opinion being, you know, somewhat of being passed around by everyone, is that it's great that we have these people, we've had these mentors, we've had these privileges, honestly, as a community, but as the youth, it is our responsibility to the community and to our elders to still make our own mark. So what is happening right now is that a lot of youth are basically, I don't want to say, to put it in not a very good way, is we are sort of relying on the privileges that we have access to, which may be in terms of, you know, the housing that we get. So a lot of Parsis get to live in colonies. A lot of them have access to wealth in terms of scholarships and funds, which a lot of other non-Zoroastrians don't have access to. And in that sense, we still want to see more youth participation in maybe even pushing through, whether it may be in terms of their own business, whether it may be in terms of, you know, achieving the heightened levels of success that our ancestors did. And that was basically one of the main reasons that I joined the WZCC, because what we're trying to do really is we're trying to engage the youth to do something for themselves, to really get out there and make their mark for themselves itself. So, so what I want to backtrack a little bit and say is that India is basically a sort of patriarchal system, and even though Zoroastrians are a little more forward-thinking in their ways, there are still lots of challenges that women do face, and that I won't say is very, very particular to the community, but it is to India as a whole. And what I do want to see is more youth and more women really stepping up to these challenges and like maybe how they did, in Pakistan, and sort of take the community forward in the way that they seem so. There's a wide range of opinions in terms of how women are sort of perceived in the community, and there's a whole, line from liberal to traditional, and it is an issue, and it's a social issue that we really have to deal with. But one of the ways that we can deal with it is women really participating in bringing or forming whatever they feel is the future of the community by taking these leadership roles or by really making things happen. So if you do believe that, there is something that you need to speak up about, or if you do believe that there is a way that you see the Zoroastrian community moving forward, you have to step up and you have to take that role, whether it be in organizations, whether it be in just, organizing yourselves or even having a discussion like this, because I believe this is one of the first of its kind, and this is such a great platform for all of us to really connect. But to keep this discussion going and to sort of get what we can from it in terms of building a more sort of solid future for ourselves as women. I don't know whether I should really, maybe we'll get to some of the other challenges that we are facing as women. But basically, I'd like to say is that it's very, very important for us to play a big role in our own future. And we have to take our future in our own hands and have these discussions, not only just with women, but also with the men, because even though they play a very different role, they play a very equal role in bringing women into the community. And one of the things that I think that we can touch upon later is, the fact that women aren't women who marry outside the community aren't able to sort of have their children be Zoroastrian. And that's something that I have witnessed not firsthand, but, with a couple of my relatives. And it's something that's very important because we do set the precedence for the rest of the country because they do look up to us as a community.
Thank you so much. I think we can all agree that regardless of the accent, some of those accents, ladies, I got to really pay attention to. I'm sure mine is bad too. But I think we can all agree that we all in some way feel like we're a minority in our own countries being Zoroastrian, and that there are certain things that really bring us together and make us proud of our identity. So we're going to kind of segue into how our identity as women is shaped. And Sanaya is going to speak, if you would please, about your experience with your mother, your grandmother, things that are passed down and how your identity gets formed.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and my own self of religious identity has been greatly formed by what I've experienced through my family, the values that have been passed down to me. What I've read from our scriptures. And one of the things that I've always really loved about Zoroastrianism is that I believe that the religion from its roots has always preached gender equality. From basically our scriptures, the Avesta, Yasna, there are many examples where this equality has been preached, where men and women were considered to be equals, they were given equal rights, status, respect. That's what I have perceived from our texts. Now, how I've seen that in practice, I think the biggest example that I look up to and really respect and actually marvel at is my grandmother on my mum's side. So my grandmother is from Udvada. I think we all know Udvada. So my grandmother was one of the daughters of Surabji Mirza, who was one of the priests at our Iran Shah Atashbera. So this was around the 1930s, 1940s. And what I marvel at is that my grandmother, despite not being from a family who was really wealthy, they actually had quite limited money, she had a lot of brothers, And she had sisters as well. But what I marvel at is the fact that she was given an absolute equal right to education, equal right to her father's assets, her mother's assets. So my grandmother was actually educated just as much as her brothers were. She was sent for higher education out of Udwada when there weren't really facilities for that over there. And then she became a teacher of the school in Udwada. And then she later on even became the principal of that school in Udwada. So my grandmother's name is Kitayun Amaria. She was Mirza at that time. And I just really marvel at that story because, you know, we've heard in so many, like, respects that women from other cultures or religious backgrounds, they didn't get those sort of opportunities, even today, but especially back in those times. I think the literacy rate for our Zoroastrian community, the women in our Zoroastrian community, is close to 100% basically, and you will see that that is so different to women in a lot of other religions, cultures and backgrounds. And at that time, in the 1930s, 1940s, our women were given the equal right to education, which a lot of women are not given in even today's times. So, and then that was passed down to my mother, who had two brothers, but again, absolutely equal right to education, and she was given really the chance to thrive in just every way that, you know, that a man is given. And I've seen this all throughout my family in so many examples, and I'm just so grateful to be a Zoroastrian, where I've seen in so many places and other religions that this just doesn't happen. And that's definitely one of the things which forms my identity. I love my religion, and I want to keep it going. I want to see the beauties of our religion, the speciality of it. I want to see it passed down through generation to generation. And I think that women play such an important role in this. So I live in Melbourne, obviously. We have our Zoroastrian Association of Victoria. Hello, everyone. So what I've experienced over there is basically, so Australia is a really egalitarian country in that way. They actually really promote gender equality. And our Zoroastrian Association of Victoria has actually, our past presidents have actually been females. Our youth chairs, subcommittee chairs have been females. I think we actually take a really, a real deep interest in doing events and activities together to keep that faith going. Now, it's been a challenge. I think more than anything we feel it because we don't have our own place of worship over there. We don't have any Zoroastrian community centre. We've been trying to get it off the ground for decades basically, but there's always been challenges in our way, and I think we feel that quite acutely, and it's not just our women but our boys as well. So that, I think, is really an important part of our legacy and our aspect that we don't have in Melbourne, in Victoria. And I think one of my greatest wishes is to actually see that happen, because I think that promotes such a sense of togetherness. To see our fire in our temple, that's certainly something that I experience when I go to India every year. And the reason I go to India every year, to Mumbai and to Udwada, to Navsari and Surat, is to actually get that sense of religion. And I get that so much from going to our Agyaris and our Atishbirams. So that's definitely a challenge that I would love to work on. It's one of the ways that I think we can grow our Melbourne community, promote our faith. So we have about 500 to 700 people in Melbourne, Victoria actually. And I think we're going to keep growing and we're going to keep flourishing, but we really need to find a way that we can bring our identities together. So yeah, and I think that a lot of our youth apathy, it's not just our religion or our community, but all across the world we see these sort of things. So I think that would really be helped if we had that sort of togetherness, and it's just something that I would really like to see happen. And Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And happy Roj birthday.
Oh, thank
It's her
you.
Roj birthday, everyone. Anahita, could you speak to what it's like growing up with other Iranis who might feel like they are Zartusti but can't practice? What is that like growing up around people where they're asking so many questions?
So the main thing about like growing up in Iran is that like you feel like you have to know a lot to be able to explain to other people about our religion. So from like middle school, they start to asking me like, what is this? What do you do instead of this in this? And like they're asking lots of questions because of the history and because like they were all Zoroastrian and they were forced to be Muslims. So they want to know more, and that like caused me to be more and more active, to go and ask, learn more, and like to be able to like spread the word. This is what we do. This is about our religion, and these kind of like information is so important in Iran to have and to be able to spread it out. And then so it has been my pleasure to be the vice chair of the 7th World Zoroastrian Youth Congress. It was mainly experience for me to learn more and like be able to get together more youth and then get them involved, because the main thing that I think we should do is to like have more youth involved. Like from, like I am a teacher at CZC, and like from their childhood we should like tell them, ask them to know more about your religion, to work and like the things that you want to do, because there is nothing that women can't do, and mainly like sometimes we do it better than men. So while I'm here, I really want to give a shout out to all of my fellow women for all they've done to get together this Congress going on, and like thank you everyone to help me out with this Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Tinaz, I would love to hear from you specifically about how you feel a sense of connectedness and identity being between New Zealand, Hong Kong, India. How does that on a day-to-day basis? There are, I think, a lot of people in this room who this might be their first event, or they might not be too involved. There might be challenges with smaller communities. All of these challenges we've talked about, but in the day-to-day, how do you feel you connect to your religion and your identity?
That's not a difficult question at all, Benafsha, thank you.
You've had harder questions, come on.
So, as I've said before, I'm currently living in Hong Kong. I was born there, raised there, and then I moved to New Zealand, spent 20 years there, and now I'm back in Hong Kong. So I'm actually very fortunate to be able to have a foothold in both places. I consider both places my home, even though I am currently living in Hong Kong. It does not mean that I'm not actively doing community work in New Zealand. So what I mean by that is I'm currently a trustee of the Zoroastrian Charity Trust of New Zealand. Yeah, sure, go ahead. And the trust has actually, for a long time now, been trying to raise funds to build a community centre. Again, fortunately in New Zealand, we've got an absolutely amazing group of youth there, of 23 of which are here today, so give it up for them. So the idea of having a community centre, like Sanaya has said, brings not just the youth together, but it offers a chance for the whole community to get together. We all know the issues that we face in today's day and age. Okay, there are issues, there are no answers to these issues per se. We all face them. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. I'm sure the ladies here will agree with me. It doesn't matter where you are. We all have to face them. But if we are together, it makes the challenge a hell of a lot easier. So the main idea is to be able to put the centre together. I joined as a trustee once I had finished organising the Youth Congress, the sixth one in New Zealand. And it's been a challenge, to say the least. It's not easy raising money, even though it's a centre for the community. Trying to procure funds from that community it's difficult. We're a first-generation migrant community. And again, I'm fortunate enough to be a part of Hong Kong where, people are fourth generation. So you can relate to see what they have there, and you want that in your own home. You want to be able to say, look, we've got something, we did this, and there's nothing better than being able to be able to achieve that. So what we have done so far is raise a certain amount of money for the centre. We are still in the process of trying to get as much as we can from not just the community in New Zealand, but globally. It is very important for everybody to get involved in something like this. It is for everyone. So why would people not want to contribute to it? The tiniest amount, I kid you not, the tiniest amount in contribution financially helps. Any amount that people are able to contribute to any of their centres in any kind of way assists. Even if you have a centre, you have to be able to maintain that, because we as youth use the centre. We use the facilities. We're able to get together and be one there, put all of the issues aside, have a drink, have a meal, have a laugh, just get together. So, I mean, it's difficult being in Hong Kong and trying to get the centre sorted. It is very difficult, but it doesn't mean that you can't get it done. We're women. We will get it done.
Shaz, I want to bring it around to you to just, while we've been chatting amongst ourselves, one of the things we spoke about was how we are our mother's daughters, but we're also in this new role. So if you could speak to how maybe you're connected as a Zoroastrian from the previous generation, and what are the things that make you unique in this generation that we're taking forward as ladies?
Okay, so I would say for me, a lot of the things that I've learned about sort of Zoroastrianism and our traditions and our culture has been from my mother. But the thing is, I think with the previous generation, what I've found is that you'd always sort of be told you need to do things this way, or you need to do things that way. But your parents may not necessarily sort of know why, so you're just kind of blindly doing it. But I do feel sort of with this generation, we are starting to question things. Well, I'm certainly starting to question things. And I think once you understand sort of the reason why we do things a certain way, for example, the significance of things in our religious ceremonies, then you get to appreciate sort of the great beauty of our religion. So I think with this generation, we are kind of striving to sort of understand more, but also sort of keep those traditions alive and sort of, living.
Thank you. Rashna, I'm going to toss that question to you as well. And also speaking to some of the challenges that you think a lot of women are shy to say, the things that, we are really facing on a day-to-day basis, but quite often we don't have a forum or we don't have a way to speak about those.
I love that question.
I thought you might.
Okay, so just like quickly, I grew up in a house where my father single-handedly raised me and my brother as equals. So anything that I really learned from him in terms of, I grew up in a very liberal house. Everything I learned from him for the religion point of view was, and he was deeply religious, is he always told me to just choose the righteous path, no matter what challenges there are in front of you. And to me, that was it. That was what Zoroastrianism was, and nothing else. anything else that I learned about the community and the culture and the religious way of life was actually passed down to me from my grandmother. So it is something that is passed down, I feel, maternally from generation to generation, which in a good way and a bad way puts a lot of weight on our shoulders.
And by passed down, you mean customs, tradition, language, the things that make us uniquely Zoroastrian.
Correct.
Just to be specific.
Correct. Yes, those specific things, and that's basically where, at that point of time, and maybe at the point of time where I started fulfilling my responsibilities as a woman in the community and in society as a whole, did I start seeing sort of inherent mild inequalities in what we perceive to be an otherwise, equalitarian sort of religion. So I'll share one sort of incident with you. And so I basically married a Parsi. I don't know how I did it. I never thought I would, okay? But I did. And to me, a lot of people tell me that I am blessed and I am lucky. But I don't believe that I have earned that kind of privilege. Like my wedding, the ceremony that I had, for example, it was a beautiful Parsi ceremony, beautiful Zoroastrian ceremony, and we felt so blessed to be a part of it. But one of my closest friends and one of my sisters who married out of the community were not able to have something so beautiful. And why is that? It's just because they chose to give their love to somebody who's not a Zoroastrian. I mean, to me, I don't feel like I have earned that sort of privilege. When I was talking to my sister, she was like, when a wedding or a marriage is supposed to be one of the best days of your life, I just wanted to get it over with because there was so much turmoil and some of our relatives didn't even show up. And she was like, that was a disaster for me. And I'm trying to think about it, and I'm like, what have I achieved to get this sort of privilege? So as a woman, it's tough because we need to speak up about these things, and we know that for a man, it's something that you don't really even think about. If I marry out of the community, my kids are going to be Zoroastrian anyway, right? So, okay, that's possibly an open thing that I can think about. But for women, it's really tough because you're pressured from such an early age to think about these things and to really sort of, you internalize them, right? And you're like, oh, I can't marry out of the community. I can't do these things because I'm possibly going to be ostracized. And in the reality of it, and speaking in a very real opinion, that is somewhat what happens. It's unfortunate, but I think as the youth, we have the responsibility, like I said, to shape this religion and to shape the community in the way that we want to, especially with the women. So it's important that we discuss these matters and sort of bring them out to light. Because sometimes what happens is, and this is what I was talking to somebody earlier about, is you need to discuss them even with the men, because they're an equal part of bringing this to the out front. And I've had this discussion with my husband for about 6 years and back to back, and the point is that there is a discussion, and that's where we start.
Thank you. Could you pass the mic to Rashna? Rashna, I just wanted to get your opinion on what the issues you face as a female doctor, Zoroastrian. How in your career do you see your religion and your identity impacting you, and what does that mean to share your voice and your experience with younger girls?
All right, thank you. So let me start by telling you an incident that basically happened when I traveled to New Zealand last year. So I found myself wandering around a mall on my own, and I'm one of the unluckiest people when it comes to having these random lucky draws and all of that. So I'm walking, and this person from WHO randomly catches me, and then they ask me this question where they go like, can you tell me, we are doing this survey and we're trying to see if people know about third world countries. And the first thing in my head is like, yes, this is something I do know. All right. So, okay, for some reason, I don't know why she didn't pick up on the fact that I was from there. But anyways, because I've always seen myself as very desi. Desi is basically the term for what we locals refer to as from the subcontinent. But yeah, so that was the first question. And then after that, the next question was that can you tell me what, in your opinion, is the most common cause of death in young infants in third world countries? And there I'm like, bingo, this is the question for me, right? So then that is why, so it literally just automatically came out, and that is respiratory infections. That is basically a simple, so in Pakistan, in India, and all Bangladesh and all of these places, the first most common, this is actually a general knowledge and a medical lesson for you guys too. The most common cause of death among children is actually respiratory tract infections, which are as simple as the common cold or flu that can affect young children, which progresses to pneumonia. And the second most common cause of death is what most North Americans have experienced on return to roots, and that is? Say it loudly. Diarrhea, right? So that is one of the most common causes of death that we have in Pakistan and India and all of these places. So coming from a country like that, having known all of these things, the reason why I'm giving you this kind of perspective is to tell you all what kind of challenges other communities face, and then I'll come to the challenges that we face. So I'll tell you first with the advantage that we have had as a Zoroastrian community as far as women are concerned. So one of the greatest things that I have come across that has really touched and affected me as a woman is seeing other women in Pakistan being treated with a lot of discrimination. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about something that starts from the grassroots level. So on a daily basis, when I'm working in the hospital setup, I see a family come up where there is an emaciated girl who is below average weight and height, as opposed to the boy in the family being of average weight, average height, being overfed. You know what the problem is in this, what the problem in the system is? If a family can, let's say, have meat to feed 1 or 2 members, then the women members get left out of the protein diet, and that intake is given to the men. And this does not happen for one day. It does not happen for 2 days or a week. It happens for a lifetime. So the woman is basically raised right from the grassroots level, from the time of birth, to be the person who's going to sacrifice herself first as a daughter, sacrifice herself then as a sibling, if there's a brother involved, if she's going to grow up, that is, if she is going to grow up to reach that age where she's going to get married, she is going to sacrifice herself to be a devoted wife, and then she's going to sacrifice herself to be a mother, and then after that she's going to sacrifice herself for the rest of her family. And this is the kind of, I'm not saying this is what happens every single place in Pakistan, but this is what the majority suffers. So I'm just trying to give you all, this might seem like a little alien concept to the people over here, but I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a perspective. And that is why when we look around in our own families, when we look around, I feel very privileged and blessed to be part of the Zoroastrian community in Karachi, where this sort of a thing is very unheard of. This is taking up from what Rashna said. This is taking up from what Sanaya has said, that we have always been given equal opportunities as young women right from the word go. And that distinction and differentiation is actually something which is a privilege other people might not even be able to dream of in countries like Pakistan and India on grassroots level. So that is something. But then that is the advantage of the things that we have. I have, like, if I just look at home, I can talk about the 3 ladies who have had the most impact on my life. That is my mother and my 2 grandmothers. Each of their stories are unique. Where empowering women goes, each of them have chosen a very different path. However, each of them have taken on a role that they have wanted to take. And that is something that I feel that empowering a woman is about. It is not about choosing a career over a family. It is not about choosing to lead rather than to follow. It is about choosing what you want to do in life. All right? So if you want to choose to be a homemaker, that my mother chose, despite being a professional trained doctor who decided to do who stopped her medical training halfway and decided that she wanted to practice medicine as a part-time job to take care of her children, that is something which was her own decision. And that is what made her feel empowered. As opposed to my grandmother, who came from a family of siblings who were like, I think she had many step siblings and all of that, almost 12 or 13 in total. But she was the lady who went on to become a doctor, who single-handedly started, actually not single-handedly again, with the help of my grandfather, who was very supportive. Again, we have to bring in men into the picture. So that's why. So she basically went on to have her own maternity home in a day and age where it was very difficult for a woman to have a career. And after that, I look at my grandmother from Iran. I share that 1/4 Irani inside of me that comes from my grandmother who's from Iran. And she was brought to Pakistan on the pretext of higher education, where she was made to get married to my grandfather. So she basically came from a family from Yazd, which was extremely, extremely poverty-stricken. And what I mean by that is, she experienced a lifestyle where not one member of the family could have a complete meal at one time. They used to take turns to have meals in a day. And what she did was, when she came over here, for her, someone who was right at the brink, she was a very brilliant student in Iran, and she was just about to graduate, where her mom, because there was difficulty to feed the family, decided that I can send my daughter over because there was a good proposal in Pakistan, and that is why she sent her off in a train on the pretext that she was going for higher education to a country like Pakistan where there were opportunities, and my grandmother found herself having to get married. Now, this is a lady who knew broken bits of English back then. She knew Persian, which was her first language, and after that, she had to learn Urdu, which is a brand new language, learn Gujarati, and settle into a new family totally unawares. And then after that, she actually, with the help of my grandfather, managed to continue her studies despite being pregnant with my mom, and for her, that was empowerment. So what I'm trying to say over here is, that empowerment might mean many, many different things to many, many different people, and the right to be able to choose that is very important. To just very briefly highlight some of the aspects that I have as a Pakistani, or some of the people who I know who have faced in Pakistan, would be something that very recently happened with my sister. So the traditional dress of Pakistan is a shalwar kameez. Are you all familiar with what a shalwar kameez is? A shalwar kameez is basically a sort of like a gown with a cut on the side, and there is like a pant that is there. And with that, for women, we have a dupatta. So dupatta is basically like a long scarf around the neck that you can hang, which you also sometimes see women taking over their head. So that's the traditional dress. So my sister went to get leave for this very same congress in a medical university, which is something where you would expect the literacy rate to be very high. And she was turned away the first time, being told, even though she was completely dressed, she had her ankles covered, she had her entire shirt on, she was actually wearing a long shirt at that time, and the dean of the university sent her back saying that, please wear a dupatta and come back. And that's when you're going to get a chance to speak to me. Now, these are isolated instances, but these do tend to happen. These do take place. And these are concerns. Personally, sometimes I have to do 32 to 36-hour shifts. Recently, there was a 56-hour shift at work that I had to do. And there were times when I had the opportunity where I had free time to go and do my kasti, maybe in my on-call room. However, I chose not to do it as long as I was alone. If I'm with the people who I already know, my friends who know about the religion, who have been comfortable and have spoken about it, I would not lift my shirt up, start doing my kasti in front of people who I'm not familiar with. And that is because of perspective. To be very honest, I feel a little scared as to what people might interpret. Taking away from what she's already said, coming from a country like Pakistan, coming from a country like Iran, we need to be a little careful as far as politics and religion is concerned. We have to be a little reserved about the way things are. I'm not saying that people are not open to it. We are loved as a Zoroastrian community. Our cars are loved. Like you have a Parsi-owned car, it is going to go like this. You can ask for any price that you want. The food, everyone loves it. We are actually very, 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 we are actually looked up to. We hold very important positions in organizations. But at the end of the day, yes, I will admit to this, there is a certain fear as to being misunderstood as a Zoroastrian. And this is something I don't know if you all will share it, but I feel like this is important, as Benafsha has pointed out, that maybe if my story can make a difference or touch even someone else's experience, maybe they will feel that they are not alone, and that is the only reason why I'm sharing this.
Thank you so much, Rashna. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I think it's pretty apparent that the rest of us in this room who do have some more political freedoms make sure we are a voice for other Zoroastrians and that we do contribute to the dialogue and to using our voices in a productive way. And with that being said, I want to take a few minutes to include you guys in asking some questions. That being said, I want to remind you that none of the ladies on this stage are experts. We don't have answers for a lot of tough questions you may think we do, but please feel free to ask some questions and we can share our lived experiences and hopefully open the conversation up a little bit more. Oh, lots of hands.
Hi, thank you all for sharing your perspectives. I was curious about the policy in Iran, more specifically, what they require or make you do or not say as to your religious practice. Can you elaborate?
Sure. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, there are several Zoroastrian associations in Iran, right? So if you are a Zartushti person and you want to reach out, you want to attend to the events and workshop, you are definitely welcome. But the thing is when you want to publicly speak out about the religion, and again, the background and the context is that all the Persian at some point were Zoroastrian, right? So this religion is entangled with our history, with our culture, and nowadays many people, especially educated people, which are the majority of Iran, are very willing to know more about this religion. We do celebrate Nowruz, Yalda, Mehregan, Sadeh in Iran, nationwide. So people see these things, and people are curious to know more about these things. So here is when this sort of potential conflict shows up, right? So because this has some history and culture behind that, of course we can refer them to some textbooks, we can refer them to some websites. But if you want to go beyond that, if you want to advertise their religion or invite them to change their religion or something like that, these are the red lines that we do not want to break, right? So now we have, I mean, back to Iran, we have some similar experience that she said. So the Zoroastrian community is known to be honest, trusty, and educated. And people are very willing. I have many, many Muslim friends in Iran. I went to Muslim schools during my whole life. I mean, primary school, middle school, and then high school. I have many Muslim friends. And I've barely observed, brutal and disrespectful behavior. They're usually very willing to know better. But the thing is, the way you communicate this thing should be in a very careful manner. And this is the challenge that we have in Iran. Some of our atashkade, our temples, are known to be historical places, so public people, they can come and visit those places, and there are some guides there so they can talk about the history behind that. Again, these things are all the background of our country. We cannot eliminate that, right? But the thing is that when it comes to, the religion and probably changing that or something like this, this is what we do not want to go beyond.
Yeah, if I may add, so the thing is like people asking us many questions, and they might be like Zoroastrians in their heart, but they cannot make it official there because there are some rules for them. So that's one thing that they can't do, but they really know a lot about us.
And also, if any of you, male or female, are feeling compelled to share your own story or share something, please feel free to do that. It doesn't just have to be a question. Yeah, most enthusiastic hands get it first, for sure. Jimmy, yeah, you gotta work for that.
It's just that the back sometimes gets forgotten. That's it. Speaking for back. This question is for any of you. I want to know a story, a specific situation where you felt that you were underestimated because someone made a gender assumption, and how that negative encouragement pushed you to prove them wrong.
We got a lot of rock stars up here. I think everyone has a story. I never take no for an answer. You guys know that. Right, or they say don't be bossy, and it ties into a lot of gender roles in Zoroastrianism too that we face as women, right? What is a pure Zoroastrian woman? What does it mean to be in our faith acting in a certain way? I know what you're talking about, but Alisha, why don't you share?
I feel like so I work for Fossil Watchers, and I'm in a leadership role there. And in any organization, or in any industry, you're gonna come across people who, might think of you in a certain way, or put you down in a certain way, or make assumptions for you. I always feel that you should know what you're trying to achieve and what you want to get out of what you're doing. Personally, I feel like I've always been encouraged to be a leader, especially as a woman growing up in Hong Kong. There has never been any gender equality. I feel very lucky in that way. I was always pushed, higher education, learn a language, do more. How are you going to be a good leader? How are you going to be a good role model? And I think that is really important for the elder generation to instill on the younger generation as well. I would say that, if I give people advice at home or in my team, you need to learn how to manage up and manage people. You can't sometimes change the way people are. You can try reasoning, but you need to learn how to kind of manage the way they're talking and figure out a way to get around it in the best way possible. Because these situations always happen. Yes, yeah.
I'll make it really short. Yes, this has happened, and I'm sure it's happened to all of us. I'm not going to pinpoint or put down any names, but when the youth conference first was given across to New Zealand, we were told that we couldn't do it.
We as women, we as the New Zealand community.
More so we as youth could not do that we couldn't do the challenge. It's New Zealand, it's too small, it's this, it's that. And I'm not going to say who has told us that, but for those of you that were there, for those of you who have heard about the event, I mean, it speaks for itself. And I'm not a feminist by any means, okay? But we had 3 females leading the event. We did have a fair share of boys in the executive committee as well, but I think what we need to remember is we have to create our own footsteps. We have to start doing the jobs that, our elders have done for us. Start getting involved in whatever capacity. Just do it and learn through the experiences, learn through the challenges, because we can do it. Clearly, we are all here. We are all learning together. We are one. So absolutely, we can all do this together.
And to piggyback off of that, sometimes I think a lot of the ladies spoke about youth apathy or disenfranchised youth, not other of your peers not wanting to get involved. And I think that's sometimes the elders say that to us too. Oh, there aren't enough youth involved. There aren't enough youth involved. And you don't see people stepping into that role. And I think the real takeaway, hopefully, from this entire experience is sometimes the baton's not passed and you have to just grab it. And you have to take the baton and, just like Tinaz was saying, be willing to run with that. Okay, questions? Go.
Sorry, I don't want us to carry on too much, and this might prevent us from going to the beach. But
yeah, we know when to turn it off for you, Jimmy.
No, but thank you for sharing your stories. Just a very quick comment and a quick question. A comment on a little positive comment on Rashna's thing about the inequality. As a priest who's never discriminated between doing a wedding ceremony for a Parsi woman or a Parsi man marrying outside, I can say that just ask your priest to go through the entire translation of the beautiful ceremony that you witnessed and you had for yourself, and ask them why that ceremony would not be applicable to two righteous people, regardless of their background, culture, race, and thing. Why our beautiful Iranian Parsi wedding ceremony cannot be applicable to them, and see if there is anything that they can find. There is some positivity on the side that there are many priests who will perform these ceremonies and hopefully will not differentiate, just as the Yenge Hatam and all the other ancient prayers from Zarathustra have always said that we are worshipping righteous men as much as we worship righteous women. And the quick question was, don't want to be devil's advocate, but this is too good of a forum to not ask you these questions, even if as uncomfortable they might be. But what are the experiences as women and daughters growing up, uncomfortable experiences that you've had where you've been not allowed to sit for ceremonies, where you have not been able to witness the funeral or a good ceremony that you really want to be a part of because of you being in your menses or things like that, and how have you felt, and what can we do so that my daughter doesn't have to go through some of those awkward experiences if I get one. I don't have a daughter by now, for now that I know of.
You mean when you get one?
When and if I have a daughter, or if any one of us. So how can we avoid going forward? How could we resolve that? But if there were any such experiences, can you share how did you feel, or what went through your head, and how could we prevent that for the future?
Okay, so I just want to say for the first part of it, thank you, because we need a lot more people like you to really spread the awareness about these things in the community. And that's why the youth is so important, right, in shaping our future and what you feel. In India, we would call you a renegade priest. Okay, yeah. So there are a few renegade priests, a bit of information, who actually do ceremonies for non-Parsi women or non-Zoroastrian women marrying, Zoroastrian women marrying outside of the community, and also do Navjots or the Sadhara Kastri ceremony for children out of this union. So thank you very much. I think that's very, important. I think the second part of it is what you touched upon, and maybe I'll throw that question back because this is a discussion we had, and we're not entirely sure what the reason is for us not being able to, go to the Atasperam or the Agyari while we are, menstruating. And it's something that has had effects negatively on us. I mean, considering when I was small and my grandmother, not even grandmother, it's just even people right now, even all of us, don't want to go to the Atasperam or the Agyari. And we're not too sure why that is, to be honest. We're not sure because we've heard various different reasons for it. In India, it's just because you're considered dirty. I mean, at least for me and my family, you had to sit away. And I know that there were other explanations when we spoke about it, which made more sense, but there's not still something that's very concrete. And I guess if you could share your experience as to, what that was.
Yes, so in terms of my understanding of the reason, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but my understanding is that this is what I've been told is that when a woman's on her period, basically she's kind of weaker in terms of her immunity, just weaker in her being. So in terms of our battle between good and evil in our religion, we're not then strong enough to kind of combat that. So that's the reason why we are kind of kept away from kind of religious things and praying. And that's my understanding from what someone's told me. Kajeste mystery.
Well, I'd like to offer a counterpoint to that because, Jimmy, to answer your question about how does that make you feel, I think of that as a privilege, quite honestly, to have the power to recreate and to go through the process of menstruating is something that I think is actually a privilege. It's a privilege. And that being said, I don't feel terrible when I can't go into the Agyari or Atasperam. I feel respectful of that only because for me, I understand that there's a metaphysical change happening in your body. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but even if you're a man and you say shave your beard and you cut yourself or you have an open wound, you're bleeding. You are not technically supposed to be in an environment where their energy and vibration is completely different. So for me, I don't see it so much as a restriction or some sort of equality issue or a women's rights issue. I see it as a privilege, and I think that when you're creating an environment in an Agyari and Atasperam, a Jashan, anywhere where people are getting together to create vibrations for prayer or for intention, that's okay if your body's going through something that might disturb that. I don't necessarily think that it's something to put women against the corner or to say you're impure, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. But what Shaz was speaking about earlier, about when we start asking these questions and we say, well, why can't we do this? And you do understand, okay, we have a responsibility as women. We are also bringing the next generation on board as women. Typically, we're the ones in the home with them, passing down some of these traditions and customs. So if you can understand, I think, that part and see it separate some of the issues less as a woman's issue or something against us, but something that contributes to spirituality and contributes to the customs, then I think it's a little bit easier to understand that. Whether you want to practice that, whether you don't believe in it, obviously that's entirely up to you. But just reflecting back on how that makes me feel, I feel privileged about it, and I think it's something that all women should not feel put in a corner because they have it or think that it's a bad thing that they can't do that. I mean, nobody, from my own personal experience, nobody that I know is still sleeping on a metal bed anymore when they have their period.
And I would just like to add to that, so I come from a Udvada family, so I've always kept away from religious ceremonies when on periods and things like that. It's, from what I've been told, and I don't profess to be an expert, but what I've been told from my elders is that our religion preaches purity so much, cleanliness, and blood in itself, as like many other matters that protrude from our bodies, is considered unclean. And this applies to men as much as women. Like Benafsha said, if a man has an open wound, he is not allowed to go to the fire or partake in religious ceremonies any more than we women are if we have an open wound or if we are menstruating. Yeah. So I don't see it as a man and a woman issue. From what I've been told, when this whole practice started out back in when our religion started, about separating the women from the men, from the family when they were menstruating, it was to give the woman rest. It was to protect her. And forgive me for saying this, but it was to stop the man from trying to have intercourse with her when on her period, because I believe that was also considered a sin back in the day, to do that, to touch a woman when she's in that state. Now, as for the explanation about the metal beds, what I've been told is that the reason it was specifically metal is because that is one, I guess, material or element which doesn't absorb sort of like germs or so it doesn't absorb the germs and the uncleanliness that comes from having blood protruding from your body. So it was never intended to be a punishment. Now, in the Western world, I don't know about other countries, but I certainly have not heard of anyone that still does this balvanu experience even now. So I think that it's not a man and a woman issue. My personal opinion is I always consider it, as Benafsha said, a privilege to even have this system as women. We can give birth to human life, which is so special. And I certainly don't see it as a disadvantage when I'm a woman. I'm more than happy to keep away from Agyari, Atashbiram, rituals at that time. And I think that there are some aspects of the religion that have to be maintained if we are to take it forward. And cleanliness and purity, and especially if you go to a place like Udvada, which is considered so pure and so special to our religion, you have to maintain that. You have to maintain some sort of purity about the place.
Thank you. More questions?
Benafsha, I'm single. Would you like to go out with me?
Say that again. I'm so sorry. What?
I am single. Would you like to go out with me?
Am I what?
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
with you?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a gentleman over here who's covered in the hat. You might have to check with him.
We can take care of that. Okay, coming to the question. So, I've personally known you as a powerhouse lady. I really look up to you. I've known you for a while now, and you're really passionate about the community. What is it, a particular quality that you've picked up from Zoroastrianism which you'd like to advocate, not just to women, but everyone in the house out here, that keeps you going? Yeah.
Whew. Sherry. Gosh, there's so many things. Really put me on the spot here. I think that there's a general sense of wisdom and happiness to keep spreading to everyone. I think part of the reason that I enjoy being involved in the community is to really build that sense of community. I've lived in the States, I've lived in India, I now live in Canada. For me, the community, wherever it is based on how strongly we build it. And I think that that comes from a lot of wanting to spread happiness and sharing wisdom. I don't think that this idea of just knowing everything is necessarily the end-all, be-all. I think the things I've learned from other women, men, the wisdom that, you know, everyone shares with one another helps build that sense of community too. And the end goal is to see a Zoroastrian community that's thriving, right? So to kind of briefly answer your question, I think that it's the wisdom and the spreading happiness. Do any ladies have any questions or want to share some stories? Yeah. No offense, men. I feel like we always have to say that, but you guys know.
As a community, we do a good job of supporting our women, arguably better than most other communities, but we still can do better. In your experiences, in what ways do you wish the community had supported you better?
Shaz, that's a great one for you. Yeah. Sure. I hear you. Shaz, you should answer that one too with the UK community. No.
Okay, so this is, like I said, directly not my experience, but I'm sort of sharing an experience of my sister who kind of married out of the community and in India itself wasn't given the kind of support that she required to, you know, sort of assimilate herself back into it. Right now she lives in Hong Kong, so the community there is a little more open. But one of the things that she really said is because we have such access again to privileges and such access to a lot of people being able to help out, one of the things that we should really do for our women, because it is so tough to have children, keep your job, run your house. What she really thought was very important, very interesting, is that the women or even the community need to get together and sort of give that kind of support to new mothers, you know, who are having children, who are basically in this crux of trying to figure out, because we have the resources to be able to do that, you know, so in terms of something like a creche, or in terms of something like a daycare facility, that's extremely important that we look out, especially for needs of women in the community and try to push that through. So I know that we do that on a very individual level. I know that, for example, if I see a woman trying to, you know, strive to sort of do better, I'll try to help her in whatever way possible, but we need to organize that a little better, and we need to sort of give back with the resources that we have.
Yeah, okay.
The reason why I'm putting you on the spot is because you do take a lot of leadership roles, and I personally know a lot of times you aren't as supported as you should be, especially being a youth and a woman on some of these organizations where traditionally they're men and they're older. So I think you can speak to that pretty clearly.
So I do feel sort of, so there's two ways I'm going to answer this. So the first way is that I do feel that there is kind of an older generation who are not necessarily willing to pass the baton on to the younger generation. Yeah. And that a lot of people in this older generation do tend to be men, sort of older men. So I don't know if that's really representative of the voice of sort of everyone in the community, particularly the women. So I do think that sort of as a young person, sort of you need the support from sort of people who also sort of have your interest and are from your background. So I think generally, like on the board of all of these different community associations, sort of worldwide, there needs to be sort of a bit more sort of mixed representation to represent the interests of everyone. Then another thing I was going to mention is probably not the same kind of thread, but so the question was of how you feel you could be better supported or where you feel you've been let down sort of in some form. So I do feel that sort of when a woman gets to a certain kind of age, there is kind of an expectation and a kind of pressure from the community for her to have sort of found her life partner. So for example, like I went to about 3 different weddings in the last 3 months, and I can't tell you how many times I was approached by aunties just asking me the question like, have you found someone? Let me find someone for you. And I just feel like there is a lot of judgments from, I guess they are well-meaning, of course, so they want you to be happy, but they define kind of happiness as kind of finding someone, and there's a lot of unnecessary pressure.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, that's kind of the way we, as women with our voices, support one another, right? Yeah. We talk about the challenges we're facing, but what it means to be a voice moving forward for some of the voices that aren't there, or for the things that we wish were different. So maybe you and I aren't going to be the aunties asking, when you're going to get married. I mean, that's the hope, right? That you learn from those things, or that you're a voice for, especially the women, this notion of she's outside of the community, right? That whole line, I think, has such a negative connotation, regardless of how you think that the person should participate. But to even be a voice for those voices that get shut down immediately by their choice, right? At least to have a voice or conversation at the table surrounding that, I think, is important. So also to just answer that, like a lot of the support, I think, comes from us recognizing that in one another, right? You don't get a lot of other support from any other way, in my personal lived experience, than being a voice or being there for someone else in your community in the most authentic way possible. Other questions?
Hi, thank you all so much for being incredible young women leaders and for being inspirations to women in this audience. I think we can give a round of applause. Y'all are amazing.
Thank you for sitting through this.
I want to have a quick kind of alternative point to the menstruation topic, because I was talking about this with a female Moderator actually 2 days ago. I completely respect the opinions, and I think that what you said was really important. Being an empowered woman is not doing one thing or the other, it's having that choice. And she was talking about the historical foundation of that kind of practice while a woman is menstruating, and how now that there's different kind of technologies and stuff like that, that may not necessarily need to be the case for a woman to sit out of religious ceremonies during that time. I mean, you can get on birth control and not have your period for 10 years. Like, who is it? Who am I to judge? Just another opinion that I've been wrestling with this, so I thought it would be important to bring that voice into the room as well. Sorry. The level of hygienes as well. So I think it's a really important conversation to have among women within the community, because, again, it's our empowered choice. A question that I had is that I'm struggling as a woman in this community is I feel like there's so many, while we are empowered in so many ways, there's a lot of ways that women are disenfranchised, and we've touched on that. And I'm having a hard time choosing kind of what are those issues that I really feel like our women should be mobilizing around and coming out around and kind of working together and honing in on it. Is it the poor treatment of female Moderator? Is it women in leadership? Is it the cultural context? And since we have an awesome panel from all around the world, what are those issues that you think is it our time to be fighting for as women within the community, since there is such a wide range of issues that we can focus on? Thank you.
Great question.
The only thing that I want to say about this is that I want to be the voice of the women who wants to be Mobets, and they can't because of the situation. Because I've been involved in this conversation, I've been faced with someone who is a Mobet, and she wanted to be like on ceremony, and they wouldn't allow her and this kind of stuff. And we, in certain part of the world, we are not allowing women to be Mobets. So that's the only thing that I wanted to be, the voice of people who wants to be and they can't.
To also kind of address that, like, it was hard for us as a panel to think about that too, like what is the big issue that we can all get together around as women and as a community to really put together. I think that what I've learned through this panel and through these women is that because so many of these issues are overlapping, that really we can start with any of them, and they really flow into each other. I wish it was as easy as just saying, okay, well, let's really tackle how we empower women to take leadership roles. That's part of it, right? There's also all of this dialogue. Our hope in doing this panel, and I think I'm speaking for everyone, please jump in if I'm not, is to just start this dialogue too. We're spending the next 4 or 5 days together, and I think whenever you see another woman, whenever you want to talk about these issues, this is where it's happening, and this is where you just figure out how those issues go, relate over each other, and it just starts in small steps. I think just recently at the Faizana AGM and the WZCC AGM, they made some sort of initiative. I'm getting this a bit wrong, we'll have to ask Arzan about it, but they made an initiative to get younger people and women on boards and do different things so that they are a part of it, right? But that's like one step. I think the other part of it is talking about it, and I wish there was one specific issue we could rally around.
Can I just add just one line to it? Basically, there are lots of issues that we need to deal with, and it's multifold in terms of the cultures that we come from, the geographies that we come from. What we really want to do is what she said, is start this discussion. And I think there's enough of us, and there's enough power in all of us to deal, and interest, yes, to deal with all these issues in different groups. So whatever you are really passionate about, go forth there. What I'm trying to say is you can make an impact. So if there's something that you are specifically looking to change, you be that change agent, and people will follow you because there is enough interest from all of us to do that. So be that change agent, guys. You know that you can make that difference in your own
And you
community.
already are, just being here and being a part of that dialogue. A couple more questions until we wrap it up. Oh yeah, Jay, don't go away. I want to hear your question.
This is a question for Sabavala from Zoroastrian Association Victoria. Before I say about question, why you are unable to raise money for your center, I've been associated with Zoroastrian Association of Victoria for a long time. I've been there 3 times at the various functions at Parliament of World Religions, UN NGO meeting, and Zoroastrian Association of Victoria has participated with us. Also, Fazana gave a Cyrus cylinder replica for our association with Zoroastrian Association of Victoria also in honoring them. The question I have, and before I raise the question about this with you or with anyone who is looking for having their own center, I would like you to see another association known as Sacramento Zoroastrian Association. Sacramento Zoroastrian Association started as a Zoroastrian Association of Women of Sacramento. The ladies came together because they wanted to teach religious education to their children. The men were involved there too. That association changed its name in 2000. It was incorporated in 2010. It changed its name in 2014. They built the center and Atashkade in 2016 and 17 and celebrated. Go on the website and see how they can do it and how you can do it. Because I had raised this question with Zoroastrian Association of Victoria, and you can do it. And there have been always the comment that there are people, seniors who have the money, but we don't know whether the next generation is going to keep it. They are not participating. So my question is, how do you feel it?
So there are a lot of issues in the community which I guess prevents us from building a place of our own. I know that we've gone through numerous meetings where we've tried to find land, and then we've done some checks, and it's just not worked out. There are different opinions. There's money issues. Some people are not willing to donate funds until they know that other people are donating. There have been pledges. There are just different issues. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get it off the ground. The main issue is funding. Now, I don't know how many people know this, but in Melbourne, in Victoria, housing land is extremely expensive. We're sort of like the fourth most expensive city in the world, so in terms of housing. So money is definitely one of the biggest issues. Then there are other squabbles about where do our priests live, how far is the area going to be from them, how are they going to be able to like go there and manage it. So there's just logistical issues. Now, in terms of the youth wanting to carry forwards our legacy, I think that I actually believe that we do want to do that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Melbourneites, but I know that the elders have a sort of building fund. It's okay, like it's not going to be nowhere near enough to to get us that place, because we're talking about millions of dollars here, Australian dollars. But we, I believe, are more than ready to take up that mantle. I think that a lot of us, the fact that there's 10 of us from our small community in Melbourne here today at the Congress speaks to the fact that we are all interested in the religion. We want to take it forward. We do love our religion. There are many times when we do get together and try to have our identity recognized through each other. So yeah, I don't think it's youth apathy all of the way. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that we somewhat feel maybe not supported at times by our seniors, or trusted as well, but not supported. And I think it goes both ways. I know that our presidents have said that the youth are not engaged. We are trying to do things that show the youth, show our community that we are actually engaged. So, for example, putting our hand up to come to this Congress, 10 of us from Melbourne is quite a good participation to come all the way from Australia. We do our netball weeks. I know that we've asked funding for different sorts of events which will bring our youth together. So we had a Byron Bay event a couple of years ago, Melbourne, Sydney, New Zealand youth, where we all just went to what is a really nice coastal place in Australia and just a long weekend, and we were just interacting. I know that we've planned more events, hopefully for the upcoming year, but in terms of the place of our own, it's mainly logistical issues to do with money. It's really expensive, I'll say that again. And the second thing is there is a lot of politics that goes on in our Zoroastrian communities, which I'm sure that we're all quite familiar with. So look, I'm certainly hoping to play a part in trying our best to get a place of our own. I think we all want it, the youth want it. But it's really a question of money, and if we can, fundraising and stuff we've looked at, but yeah, we're talking about millions of dollars here. We've tapped a lot of doors, governments, things, but at the end of the day, they don't give us priority because we're just a small 500-700 people. We're a small community, so there are a lot of challenges, but I'm sure that we will be taking steps henceforth and even in the future to show the fact that we are interested and do our best to get that place of our own.
Yeah, Jay. That's okay.
So, I guess most of you know me, but my name is Rehan Kotwal, for the ones that don't. And I think, honestly, I'm truly, I love what you guys are doing, and I'm so in awe of all of you, the amazing work that you all have done. I think great round of applause to each one of these guys. Incredible women, all of them. And I've spent a lot of time with a lot of you. I think one of the things that, which I keep thinking about, and I'm a Zoroastrian priest from India, is what can we do as men to change or make your lives or equal, and as a feminist as well, what can we do more? And one of the things that we do in WZCC, at least in the youth wing, is we actually have more women in our core team as well to promote more female activities. And this Congress itself is a great testament to what you guys have done. So what can we do more to make it different or better is the question to you women from the guys' perspective.
So one is listen, I guess. And the second is what I truly, really believe is that you need to talk to other men. So it's important for you to have that conversation with other men as to, how you feel you can change the environment or the community for the betterment of us. Because we have been saying it for a long time, and we do rally amongst women. And, it's sometimes it's like really chewing your ear off. You can ask, like, my husband. But but what he does do is then he listens, and then he understands. And then when he goes and talks to another person or another guy, they listen and they understand. And you have to be that catalyst within, your own gender and sort of, amalgamate with us to really help us take this forward.
Any last questions or stories anybody else wants to share before Arzan kicks me off the stage?
Thank you for doing this. We all know. I appreciate it. Mine is kind of in line with what he asked. Like, what are the ways that you can bring men into the conversation? Because I know I can have a conversation with other men, but as our mothers, as you guys are the mothers of the future or mothers of the now, how do you have the conversation? See, growing up as a kid, when I asked my mother and sister about like periods or menstrual cycles, they didn't even tell me. It was like, shh, it's a women thing. Sure, yeah. And I didn't even know, so I asked other men in my school because I grew up in Iran. And of course, we all know the answers to those crazy stories that comes out of it, right? And I want to ask this, how do you bring men into the conversation? How do you do more to be able to openly discuss things about sexuality, things that makes us different physically, and men would not know? I mean, I can guarantee a lot of men in this room don't know what happens, or what are the things that you go through, or what do you feel?
I'll hold another panel for that separately.
So yeah, it's kind of in line. I want to encourage that, and I want to ask, what are the ways you see that we can have more conversation on both sides, like men and women together?
Hello. So the reason why I wanted to take this question to add on to what the conversation has been going on is that, and it's a word that you already said, we need to take these things together. It is not just women who have to come out on the streets or fight for their rights or ask for their rights or demand for their rights. We need to do these things together. To be very honest, I am a feminist. I am very pro-feminism, but I have a little bit of a problem with how the word itself is a little biased. I understand it means equality for all, but the whole idea is that when we look at Facebook and we look at Mother's Day, so we have 100 different posts from 100 different people, but I kind of also feel like the men go a little unrecognized. For instance, sometimes Father's Day, how many of you have put a post for Father's Day, and how many of you versus you have put a post for Mother's Day? So I think the whole idea is that right now we are in the spotlight where we are talking about women's issues, and that is great. But what we need to do is we need to take each other together. I don't see men and women, I hope I'm not pushing a button here for certain people. I don't think men and women are completely equal as far as we are built. We are built very differently, but that means that we are unique in our own ways, and that also means that just because we are built differently doesn't mean that we should be denied something that we want to do. Like for instance, if I say that should we build an entire workforce of construction workers with women? Maybe that might not be the ideal thing, but yes, if we have a woman who's built that way who wants to do it, go for it. If we want a woman to be an orthopedic surgeon who has to break bones in the process of building them up, sure, why not, if that is what she wants to do. So what we need to do is we need to take these things together. So the question here is actually the answer which you've already said. Number one, the women need to come out. As you said that your mom and your sisters shushed you, I think that is something where we need to take a step, and as women, we need to change that. And we need to involve the men in our lives and try and get this conversation started, and then expect the support from their end. And then again, take these things together, and then that is how the difference is going to come. It's not me versus you. It has to be something that is done absolutely together, all of us.
Just to add to that, I think put very simply, it's the attitude that you bring to certain things we discuss with you. I mean, when boys, or I should say men rather, when we say period, immediately the natural thing is, ooh, icky. You know, let's be honest, that's the mentality you get growing up in school, and then it's kind of passed through. So it's just the attitude you bring to it. Bring a neutral attitude. You know, everyone's got their own opinions about bits and pieces, but yeah, you've got to go with the times. You know, it happens. So yeah.
Anybody else? Any last questions? Again, just to bring it back to, this is hopefully the start of an ongoing discussion, even past this week. Share your stories with one another. Don't be afraid to tell people where you're from, what lessons you've learned about Zoroastrianism, where you come from. We're all minorities in our own communities, I think, even in India, wherever we are, and we have found ways to flourish. But it comes from all of us continuing the dialogue and continuing the discussion. So take time throughout the rest of the week, please, to talk to other women, talk to people from other countries, and build that network and community with other people that you can rely on them to feel your own sense of identity, to continue building your story, and to support the issues that are important to you. Not all of the issues are necessarily groundbreaking for you or might spark interest, but you will find something that other people do too, and that's really the sense of community. Women's issues are everybody's issues. They're global issues, they're Zoroastrian issues, they're socioeconomic issues. So keep the conversation going, and definitely take time to come chat with some of these ladies, because like I said, they're very interesting. Thank you so much for sitting through this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies. Can we get one big round of applause for everyone on stage? Thank you, all the panelists. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite our two amazing Congress co-chairs, Katayun Kapadia and Maruk Motafaram, to give these mementos out to the panelists.